It is important to reflect upon teaching. Reflecting is being able to link ideas together to draw upon a conclusion, consisting of reviewing a practice to create a chain of conscientious thoughts. Dewey, 1933. Gay and Kirkland 2003 and Jasper 2003 discuss the importance of reflecting on teaching whilst training, as you can learn from past experiences through highlighting strengths and weaknesses that can help you to develop and adapt your future lessons. Similarly, Borek 2004 highlights the importance of reflection for training teachers, as it is essential to improve the ways in which lessons are taught to enable positive effects on your learners. For this reason, critically reviewing your teaching empowers you to explore the ways in which you teach and how to create good habits, whilst removing bad habits to ensure maximum student learning. Adam and Kaplan 2004. Chandler and Penny 2002 indicate PE focus on learning skills, knowledge and understanding that leads to bodily awareness and the development of expression. These key skills underpin development, participation and performance, which play a vital role in society. Therefore, it is important that practitioners learn and develop ways in which to create different and effective learning outcomes in PE lessons through reflection of practice. Banville et al. 2005. Through watching this video back, there were both strengths and weaknesses to the ways in which the lessons was taught. The strengths included the ability to manage the class well through being confident with good use of voice projection and bringing the group together to instruct. Secondly was the ability to teach within the realms of a pedagogy, implementing TGFU into rounders. Another was being able to differentiate the activities for those in different levels. Next was the importance of fundamental movements within the game. Lastly, being able to involve all non-participants in the lesson to ensure everyone was learning and engaged. On the other hand, there was also weaknesses. The weaknesses were allowing the children to not be challenged or show understanding through the use of closed questioning. Next was the use of generic praise. Then was the explanations were sometimes unclear and the students had to re-ask what the task was. Finally, the spacing in which they had to play the game was unrealistic. This often made it hard for the defending team at stages. So my first strength, at 9:08, I asked the students to freeze, which is highlighted here. Bergill and Erin 2013 suggest that freezing students allows students to focus on what you are saying, and you can potentially see the students who are not listening to instruct them, as they are no longer moving around. I believe asking students to freeze works as they are no longer involved in the activity or have equipment to mess around with. Gilling 2014 believes good class management consists of clear communication, confidence and control. By freezing the class, it meant that I had control over the class. At 4:23, I brought the class in. By bringing in the class, it means I have control of the environment, as they no longer have equipment around them and they can fully focus on what I have to say. However, there are points throughout where students look disengaged. What I should have done is try to engage them within the conversation, as some of them show clear body language that looks uninterested, such as looking away or looking at their feet. So my second strength was teaching within a pedagogy through implementing TGFU into rounders. So this can be seen as a strength, as students have different ways in which they learn, and by incorporating a teaching style into a lesson can influence the amount a child learns within the activity. Felder and Silverman 1998 and Hindle and Palmer 2007. So TGFU is a pedagogical model that is student-centred, and it encourages the learners to develop problem solving, critical thinking and autonomous thinking. Keith and Yaya 2012. At point 209, and at point 11:25, both the attackers and the defenders have to try and solve a problem of how to keep the ball away from one another. At point 14:06, it is clear that this student is critically thinking about the ways to intercept the ball, as he waits for a mistake to be made and then takes his opportunity as the defender to intercept the ball. The emphasis on this model is to learn through games, so the skill is not learned in isolation, making it realistic. Butler 2005. Strengths of this pedagogy are as it allows children to experiment different techniques and outcomes. As you can see throughout the lesson, there's a numerous amount of techniques that are used to try and create different outcomes. There is also the link to outwitting opponents in a game. This can be used through numerous other games, such as netball and football. Kingsley and Russell 2011 and Pope 2005. The next strength was being able to differentiate the activities for those of different levels within the class. So differentiating is the way in which teachers adapt lessons according to the student's ability. It depends on their style of learning, experience, and if they can pick up the activity quickly. Tomlinson 2002. At 9:51, one group has mastered the activity, so I choose to slightly differentiate their activity. I've done this as I wanted everyone in the class to be challenged by the activity that they was doing. Perotsky 2013 believes it is important that children reach their maximum potential within a lesson. I then waited to 10:51. At this point, I chose to move on to the next group, as the other group clearly still needed practice on learning the fundamentals of the skill. By providing these different scenarios for students, I believe it helps them to maximise their growth as they have the opportunity to develop at their own speed and increase the quality of their learning. Goa 2010 also believes that this is vital for development and growth in PE. My next strength was highlighting the importance of fundamental movements within the game. So throughout this game, I linked fundamental movements in which related to both the game of rounders and linked them across many different sports. I used fundamental movements such as ducking, twisting, throwing and dodging. So fundamental movement skills are motor skills and physical competence that helps to develop the social, cognitive and affective skills and behaviours to ensure lifelong physical literacy. Bailey 2009. At point 16:10, I got some students to highlight some key fundamental movements and asked them to focus on these throughout the game, as part of their consolidation of learning, to see if they had understood the specific movements they were asked to do. Cliff et al. 2010 believes these are the building blocks that lead to specialised movement sequence. Therefore, by asking them to do these movements outside of the actual game, it helps them to develop and practice these skills in a game-like environment to help them link them back to the game. The reason I asked them to pick movements and question them how to link them to the game is Wolf 2010 found these movements can become unconscious controlled movements through practice, and understanding these will benefit their physical literacy. So at this point here, you see them using throw-in. And here there's the use of the ducking down and the twist to stump the post. So my last strength was being able to involve all non-participants into the lesson, ensuring they are learning and engaged within the activity. So during the lesson there was many students who couldn't take part. However, I still got them involved by asking them to analyse and coach different parts of the game that they saw, which you can see what I am doing here. At 14:27, I asked the non-participants to go in and coach a point, what they could have done, what the students participating could have done better, or what they have done really well. And at 15:17, I asked the students who didn't take part to give their feedback as part of the consolidated learning. The reason I'd done this was so that I could check that they have also learned, although they didn't take part in the lesson, they had helped those participating to understand ways to improve. It is important that students take part even if they can't participate within the physical aspect. Lloyd Coat 2009 suggests that by allowing students to think critically and analyse, assess and evaluate and decide in ways which people can improve allows them to understand the concept behind the game. Therefore, they weren't missing out on any of the learning. By giving them other roles, it still allowed them to feel involved within the lesson and allowed them to be critical. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to my weaknesses. So my first weakness was not allowing the children to be challenged or show understanding through the use of closed questions. So when bringing in the group at point 4:30, I used closed questioning. I would demonstrate the way to catch a ball and then ask them what this was called, instead of letting them explore ways to do so. What I should have done was use open questioning, as it allows students to think and be creative by leading them to a number of answers. Hargrave 1984. However, by demonstrating the points that they done badly, it didn't allow them to think for themselves as to reason as to why these movements weren't as successful. Bond et al. 2006 suggests that closed questions can only lead to one answer, and this doesn't allow students to think critically or reflect on what they have just done. Jessel et al. 1991 believes it important to ask open questions, as it allows students to engage with others' ideas and be involved in their own learning. Also, by doing this, if you can see, numerous students don't really look interested. However, if I'd actually asked them to speak with their peers and involve them more in their learning, then they may have looked more interested and understood. So my second weakness was the use of praise. Throughout the lesson, I often used very generic praise and didn't highlight praise to anyone as such. This occurs at 3:03. And at 2:11 and at 9:24. At these times, all I say is good and well done. However, nobody knows who I'm saying good to, so someone could have been using the wrong form, and I have told them that was good. Both Roberts 2003 and Dawson and Wise 2009 agree that praise can encourage students to try and be more creative through them gaining confidence due to support from their teacher. I could have used praise at point 3:56. Where one of the girls in the class intercepts the ball. Dwight 2006 suggests that specific praise can lead to children gaining mastery response in which the learners feel encouraged to embrace a growth mindset. Therefore, this could have influenced the way that they had learned and performed the sport. Although one strength of this was at 7:47. I asked the class to make sure they were stumping the post, and one group done this well, so I highlighted specifically the praise to one student in this group. Douglas and Skipper 2012 believes by giving specific praise on something you have asked a student can do can increase the motivation of others to do well, as the confidence of those in the group you praise will increase. If throughout I had used more specific skills, it could have increased the motivation and the confidence within the lesson. Number 3 was some of the explanations were unclear and students had to re-ask what the task was. At 5:47, I had just finished explaining and the student re-asked me what they were supposed to be doing. When listening back to the video, it was clear that I do not explain efficiently and that I repeat parts numerous times. Blind and Irwin 2013 research found that instructions should be short and clear, as a student becomes disinterested by verbal instructions for long periods of time. By making instructions clear, children find it easier to keep up with the demands of the game as they understand what is being asked of them. Thomas 2010. However, this group, they did manage to understand what was being asked of them and they did grasp the concept well. However, if there was a younger group of children, they may have struggled to grasp the concept of the game through poor use of explanation. So, the next point was the spacing in which they had to play the game was unrealistic. Throughout the lesson, the spacing of the areas set up could have been slightly smaller as the defenders were not always as successful as they could have been. At 6:32, the student was having the ball being passed around him and it was unrealistic for him to get the ball. Whitehead 2010 believes it is important to provide learners with experiences that enable them to have purposeful pursuits, demand and progression. However, by the space being too large, some of the physical pursuits were unrealistic. This then can decrease their motivation and confidence, which can hinder the child's physical literacy. Capel and Whitehead 2013 also found by giving children realistic goals can make them feel as if they have more freedom to take part in the activity as they have higher levels of satisfaction. This can increase the chance of them wanting to participate throughout later life. Therefore, my critical incident is the one that occurs at 6:32. I'll highlight that again. The playing area was too big, making it unrealistic for the defender to intercept the ball. So I identified the situation through watching the game being played. The defender looked lost and looked over to me as if to say, "This is impossible." So at this point I felt worried that I had made a bad lesson, as this was too challenging and unrealistic for the pupil, which was decreasing their motivation. At this point, the process of analysing the situation took place, as I had to make a change quickly to get them back on track to their learning. So my actions were to add another defender, to make it harder for the attacking team, and also to make to increase the emphasis on stumping the post, which means the defenders would have more time to head towards the attackers, and it also relates back to the rounders match. Although this was a critical incident, by me being able to adapt this lesson quickly and highlight that the part of the lesson isn't working is a good attribute to have, as it ensures students will always be learning. Goa 2010 suggests that being able to adapt and plan your lesson can increase student learning and help them to be more engaged in this activity taking place. As I stated before, Whitehead 2013 believes that when a pursuit is unrealistic, it can have damaging effects on students. However, as I rectified this problem quickly, it eliminates the chance of them becoming demotivated, and students can gain confidence again, as I put the blame on me and I took into consideration that the pitch size was too small. Therefore, the student didn't feel as if they couldn't actually do it and they wasn't competent at taking part in that part of the lesson. So overall, I've highlighted both strengths and weaknesses to my teaching. It is important to identify these and reflect throughout initial teacher training while you're a teacher, as it can help you to become a better practitioner. Jasper 2003. The ability to adapt and run a well thought out lesson was a positive to my teaching. However, the negative parts were the ability to question, the use of good praise, and being able to give clear instructions. By highlighting these negatives, it gives me a chance to look into ways to making these strengths, which will allow children I teach to learn and be more engaged with my lesson. Adam and Kaplan 2007.